Have you ever had a funny feeling about someone and wondered if you could trust them? In this video, we'll look at a situation in a sober living house where one of the residents is questioning if she can trust a new arrival. Stay tuned and see what I conclude. Hi everybody, I'm Sue Ellen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we're learning how to read tarot one card at a time. In today's video, we'll be looking at 3 cards to help a woman answer the question, can I trust someone in my sober living house? She drew 3 cards and could not figure out an answer, so she drew a 4th card, which we'll discuss at the end. I will be using the Radiant Rider-Waite Tarot, and there is a link below. This question was posted anonymously on Facebook. I thought it was a very interesting question from someone who was clearly in a vulnerable position. Here's what she said. Can I trust if this person will be good for me or not? I am in a new phase of my life. I just moved into sober living and there's someone whose energy I just can't figure out. I'm unsure if I can trust her in such a vulnerable part of my life. This is not a love interest, just another member of the sober living community who moved in a few days ago. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to assume that this poster is a woman who I will call Claire, and I'll be calling the new resident that she's asking about Elaina. Claire drew 3 major arcana cards, the Moon, the Chariot, and the Fool. I think it's fascinating that she drew 3 major arcana cards, so she is clearly dealing with significant events in her life. I would think that being newly sober would pretty much top that list. So let's look at the cards. Card number 1 is the Moon. My first thought when I saw the Moon card is that things are not always what they appear to be. I know that it freaks me out when I'm walking at night and hear rustling in bushes. Sure, my brain knows that it's likely just a mouse, but depending on my mood, I can interpret that to be a mountain lion, which, by the way, aren't even supposed to exist on Long Island where I live, or an escaped felon who is going to kill me, and sadly, we do have our share of those. So I see the Moon card as being about mystery, deception, and confusion, all of which point to Elaina not being the person she appears to be. I would also take this as a warning that Elaina cannot be trusted. In the best case, her presence is confusing. In the worst case, she is deliberately deceiving Claire. Neither of these is good for Claire and her newfound sobriety. The Moon is also about trusting your intuition. So I would say that because Claire is questioning whether or not Elaina is good for her, her intuition is giving her guidance and she needs to trust it. The Moon is also about cycles. Teachers and emergency room personnel will tell you that crazy things happen around the full moon, although I'm not sure that there are actual studies to prove this. Regardless, the word lunacy has its origin in the Latin word luna, which means moon, and there has been a long-standing belief that the moon impacts mental health. With both Claire and Elaina being newly sober, I imagine that they are in very precarious positions, and this card is a reminder to be careful. There are 2 canines on the Moon card, and they represent opposite things. The dog is domesticated and represents the conscious mind and being able to control yourself. The wolf, on the other hand, is wild and makes decisions based on instinct and unconscious urges. In this case, I believe that the dog represents Claire and the wolf represents Elaina. Claire is looking upward at the moon and following the light located at the end of the path, which I am interpreting to be the path of recovery. Elaina is ignoring the path and is focused on Claire. If I were Claire, I would be questioning if Elaina is taking her recovery seriously or is hiding her true intentions. In summary, I believe that the Moon card is telling us that Claire should not trust Elaina. The second card is the Chariot. In the Chariot card, we see a charioteer who is in complete control of the 2 sphinxes. The interesting thing is that the control comes totally from his mind, as he is not holding on to any reins. He is fearless and focused on his goals. In this case, I see the charioteer as representing the staff in the sober living house. They are completely in control, and I'm sure there are a lot of rules. So I'm guessing that the black and white sphinxes represent Claire and Elaina, who are once again complete opposites, at least in color. They are both resting, and we can see that their bodies are facing in opposite directions, so they don't look like people who are going in the same direction. Since both of them presumably have the same goal, which is to stay sober, it looks like one of them will not make it. Sphinxes are also mythical creatures, which means that they are totally made up. I'm guessing that, as addicts, both Claire and Elaina lost touch with reality. They may have deliberately lied, or they may just no longer be certain what parts of them are real and what are not. That makes it hard to trust. As a result, I feel like the Chariot card also confirms that Claire should not trust Elaina. The third card is the Fool. So we come to the final card, and we've moved from 3 animals on the Moon card to 2 animals and a human on the Chariot card to the Fool and a dog on the final card. So the question is, does the Fool represent Claire or Elaina? The Fool generally represents new beginnings and opportunities. Both Claire and Elaina are newly sober, so I think that qualifies as a new beginning for both women. The Fool also represents taking risks and trusting in one's own path. The Fool is facing towards the past and is getting ready to step off of a big cliff. The Fool also doesn't have a lot of luggage, which makes me think that the trip wasn't planned. For those reasons, I believe that the Fool actually represents Elaina, who's decided that she has had enough of the rules in the sober living house and escaped. She wants to be free and do things her own way. I also think that the white dog represents Claire, who tried to warn Elaina that her escape was not a good idea. Claire can see how treacherous the terrain really is, with the mountains, cliffs, and icebergs below. Yet Claire is completely optimistic and convinced that she will succeed. She doesn't see the pitfalls. All she sees is the sunshine. Sometimes the Fool literally represents someone who is foolish or making poor decisions, and I think this is Elaina, who is looking to escape and do things her own way. Her eyes are on the past and not the future. I believe that the Fool card indicates that Claire cannot trust Elaina. So let's get to the clarifier, which is the Queen of Swords. Claire could not understand the meaning of this reading, and so she pulled a clarifying card. This is a card that's designed to provide additional insight into the situation, and she drew the Queen of Swords. The Queen of Swords is a very positive card that I'm sure represents Claire. The Queen of Swords is known for being smart, capable, focused, and ambitious. She is also someone who has experienced many difficulties in her life, yet here she is, sitting on her throne above the clouds and facing the future. We see butterflies on her crown and on her throne. Butterflies signify transformation, and I believe that Claire has embraced her recovery and is stepping into her future. We can see red ropes on her wrists that have been cut off. As we discussed in the video on the Queen of Swords, which I will link to below, these ropes represent painful situations that she's left behind her. I'm quoting from Pam Richards in her book Understanding Tarot. Quote, "These cut ropes show grief, struggle, and conflict in her past, situations leading to a desire to be free of emotional pain." Unquote. So I believe that Claire is leaving her past behind. Note that the Fool and the Queen are facing in different directions. This is another clue that Claire should not trust Elaina. They have not been going in the same direction since they met. Swords are all about communication and honesty, which are both tools that an addict must embrace to stay sober. So I think that the Queen of Swords means that Claire has a great future ahead of her. In summary, we began with the Moon card about mystery, deception, and confusion, which indicated that Elaina was not the person that she appeared to be. I also believe that the dog represented Claire and the wolf represented Elaina. While Claire's gaze is following towards the light located at the end of the path, which I'm interpreting to be the path of recovery, Elaina is ignoring the path and focused on Claire. If I were Claire, I would be wondering if Elaina was taking her recovery seriously or hiding her true intentions. The second card is the Chariot, and I saw the Charioteer as representing the staff in the sober living house. I see the black and white sphinxes as representing Claire and Elaina, who are, once again, opposite. Their bodies are facing in opposite directions, so although they both presumably have the same goal of staying sober, it looks like one of them will not get there. The third card is the Fool, who is facing towards the past and getting ready to step off a cliff. I believe that this represents Elaina, who is looking to escape and, foolishly, do things her own way. Together, these 3 cards point to the same thing, that Elaina cannot be trusted. Claire pulled a clarifier card to give her more information, and she pulled the Queen of Swords. This is a very positive card that represents someone who is ambitious and a good communicator. The red ropes on her wrist show grief, struggle, and conflict in her past. The many butterflies indicate transformation. Swords are all about communication and honesty, which are great tools for someone who wants to remain sober. So I think that the Queen of Swords means that Claire has a great future ahead. I hope this video gave you some ideas that you can apply to your tarot practice, specifically when you are trying to analyze whether someone is trustworthy. Please leave a comment if you'd like to share what you learned, and if you're not already a subscriber, I'd love to have you subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss anything. And I'll see you next time.